All right, guys, if you're seeing me, we're just making sure that we're actually live. So just one second. It is not going, Sean.
It is on Facebook.
It is on Facebook? Okay, why is it not on YouTube? I wonder. Oh, now we're live on YouTube. Okay, guys, I'm so glad I didn't stop it again. Apologies, I had, you know, It's me. So there's always little tiffs to get through. But happy Wine Wednesday. I broke my glass yet again, so I'm drinking out of a grandma looking wine glass, but hey, it works. I've got some Merlot beside me and all my good friends here to chat. And tonight is just going to be an open chat style year end wrap up where we're going to take any questions that you might have. I see we've already got people in on YouTube. If you have any questions, shout them out. Let us know how your year's been, what's going on with your seahorses, and hello to my friends that are with me. Ray, I got that your document put up. Did you see that?
Yes, I did. Thanks.
No problem. Thank you for sending it. Love it.
I was thinking I was going to stick it on here tonight too in the comments.
Feel free. Absolutely. Better. The more it gets out there, the better. So anyhow, like I said, we're winging it tonight, guys. So definitely give us some questions. And I don't know, Cheryl, what's going on? How was your year? I'm winging it.
It's 2020, and I'll be glad when it's over.
Right.
It's just been, it's crazy right now.
Don't I know it? But with the Seahorses, has anything happened this year like that's different from other years?
Not really. I'm waiting for everybody to finish maturing, and I've got some that are dancing, but I have to laugh because I've got a couple of little ones, and they keep trying to dance with the big ones.
Of course.
And it always cracks me up when they do that.
Love the fry. You're the fry guy. Holly, how's it going with your tank?
Oh, everything's going good. I moved my two last little juvenile seahorses into my big tank for Christmas. And so one of them, actually the bigger, older one, was the shyest. She hid out for like a day and a half. And the littlest one, actually Scrappy Doo, he or she, I'm thinking it's a she, wants to be friends with everybody. So very social, making the rounds of the tank, met everybody and is loving it.
That's so cool. I love it. Yeah, I feel like I'm the only one without fry. Well, Dan, this has been a different kind of year for you, huh?
Yeah, I'm almost down to just H magnet.
What?
I'm almost down to just H magnets.
H magnets. I don't get it.
Yeah, Seahorse fridge magnets.
Oh, I was like, am I the only one not getting it? Nice. Well, and we can all just continue. Hey, Lucy, how are you? How was your Christmas? And what do you got planned for the new year? But yeah, Dan, we're all always hoping that you jump back in feet first. But I get it. Do you miss it?
Well, the tank. Well, yeah, but all the tanks are still sitting there. It wouldn't take long to get things up and running. It's just I would have to. It'd be real tough on me right now.
Sure. No, I get it. Well, we appreciate that you hang out with us every week and educate everybody and help everybody with the Seahorses. Have you noticed in the group, like, has it gotten a little better, like not seeing the same questions, or is it typically still the same?
I haven't been active enough to accurately answer that.
Gotcha.
From what I can tell, though, I see pretty much as before. You get new people in, they're going to ask the same old questions, and that's the unfortunate thing about a Facebook type scenario. There was mentioned on there something about the org and how nice it was with the org. People could look things up very easily.
Right.
Not so easy on Facebook unless they go to the file section, and very few people think to do that.
Right.
I found the same thing too. You refer them to the files section, and they turn right around and ask another question that is in the articles.
Right.
But that's human nature. It's not necessarily a bad thing.
I think it's the generational thing more than anything else.
Sure. I saw a comment on one of the posts in the group where the guy was like, not complaining, but saying, it's hard when you get 50 million answers. Is anybody actually an expert? And we always point them to this group, but it is hard because anybody can answer for sure.
Well, then sometimes they'll contradict somebody that's been at this for years. And you can't be rude, but you also try to educate as you're going through it and be as polite as you possibly can. And it's part of working with people.
Yep, and that's yeah, I absolutely agree. And you know, the other part is we know that the basics are the basics. You got to stick to the basics. But then there are a lot of people who've gotten things to work in different ways, or maybe that things are working for them because they have a huge tank and they don't explain that part. You know, it's just yeah, case by case. I swear. Hey Nicole, are you talking tonight? How what's going on with you?
Nothing new. Sorry, I'm eating a salad. Yeah, everything's good.
Okay.
But if you're eating salad, it can't be good. It's supposed to be
It's
eating
good. It's
something
Cobb
good.
salad. It's good. It's got a lot of protein on it.
Oh, God. I'm a meat and potatoes man.
Meat and potatoes. See, I like salads too. I'm with Nicole. And yeah, I see Lucy and Dylan. Hi guys. Happy New Year to you too. So what are you guys, did you guys have good Christmases? That's a good thing. I know it's kind of, yeah. Don't everybody answer at once.
Well, I can't say I had a Christmas, really.
Oh, why not?
I never put up a tree or anything. Well, I'm just here with my dog and my seahorses.
Right.
That's it.
I got my cat's presents.
You got your cat's.
I gave my seahorses presents.
You're as bad as my kids.
Now wait, what was the seahorse present, Holly?
I found this little aquarium decoration. It's a little candy cane that they can hitch to, and it says "sweet but twisted" on it.
That's I saw your post. That's
and
right.
they've been hitching on it, so it was a hit. I put it in the day I moved the bigger babies in, and then I also found out the pet store that I had taken, my first set of babies to. They sold the last pair, so they all have homes now.
Yay! And now they'll want more, right?
Yeah. And then I had a couple days after Christmas, I got a call from someone who actually lives in my town. She saw my sign at the grocery store and was interested in the seahorses. She says she's always been interested but never seen them for sale.
Right.
So I invited her over. She checked out the tanks, and she has never had seahorses, let alone even a saltwater tank before. So she wants to get into the hobby, and I invited her to join us tonight. I don't see her here, so I don't know if she's able to or not.
Her husband will be killing me.
Yeah.
But
Well, if she
that
does
was a
jump,
cool thing.
sorry, if she does jump in, if she wants to come in the video, she can, or in the comments, feel free. If we see it, we'll definitely jump on it. And I saw Dylan, you got more tank or cash for your tanks. Nice, can't wait to see it. Excuse me, sorry.
See the cash or the tank?
Oh, I thought it said, yeah, he got more cash for his tank, right? You guys are just killing me tonight. Anyways, all right, what else, guys? I suck at these open chats, just trying to grab at straws here. But if you see any questions in the comment section, definitely let me know. And what else, Holly? When you're talking about your friend that hopefully will join tonight, and she's never had a saltwater tank or probably even freshwater. Dan, don't you usually say that that's the best type of person to start with seahorses, because sometimes reefers think they know a different way?
I won't say they're the best type, but generally they're very successful if they're seeking proper advice. I found that most people that are new, as long as they've got somebody who's experienced to guide them, generally do very well because they don't have any bad habits or any preconceptions.
Right.
Of
And
course,
I saw
the
she
same
joined the group too. So
the same
I
thing
told
can
her,
happen
"Join the
though
group and start learning."
if they get a hold of the wrong person, tell them to set it up. They can go the other way too.
Mm-hmm.
That's another post that I saw in the group the other day. Someone said something like, "Wow, everybody had shot a bunch of advice at him," and he was like, "Okay, seahorses, this sounds like it's just going to be way too hard. I can't do it." And I think you, Dan, jumped in there and said, "No, it's really not." So do you guys worry sometimes that we overload people to make them, that feeling is happening often, where people feel like, Oh wow, they're talking about all this stuff.
There are some people that are quick to jump and come across pretty strong that turns people off. And it's not as bad as it was at one time. I mean, if you go back to the early days, I mean, Christ, when people were selling a seahorse, you had to fill out an application, you know. They would not sell it to you if you'd never had seahorses before and if you weren't successful. You know, they wanted to know how long you've had them and, you know, all these questions and stuff. And then if somebody tried to do something that was not in the realm of what they thought was correct, they were all over them. And,
Mm,
you know, sometimes it got nasty. And, you know, it took a long time, you know, because there's a lot of things that I did that didn't go with the grain, if you will. And I had to keep my mouth shut for a long time till I had built up enough reputation to start saying something.
right.
Um, you
That's
know,
my
and it,
problem. I haven't learned to keep my mouth shut or keep my fingers still.
Yeah.
yeah, I sometimes I do it too, but what I've learned on the forums long ago is first of all, whenever you say something, you can't take it back. It's always there. The second thing is to think it through and take your time you're going to answer, especially if it's not going to be, you know, if it's going to be controversial or something that's out of the norm. You want to pick very carefully what you say and not come off the wrong way. There's been several times I've written responses and didn't post it and just sat on it and
Mhm.
then turn around the next day and deleted it after I had a chance to think about it. And I think more people should take a little bit more thought into posting sometimes, you know, especially when it's something that goes against the grain or, you know, they're trying to, I don't want to say, you know, yell at somebody, but it, you know, when they're saying something that's not necessarily in agreement, you should really think it through.
You probably can't see me over here, but I'm like nodding like a crazy one of them little plongy heads. I can't think of the word, but yeah, no. And Dan actually, you actually taught me that a long time ago, and I still screw it up all the time. My late night posts are not in that category, but I do try really hard to walk away before I post now, especially if it's, you know, if I'm stressed or upset or whatever, you know. So I definitely hear you on that. Hey, Lucy, I see you guys talking in the comments that you're going to start keeping. Wait. I'm trying to keep some juveniles bright. Just invested in new hitches and a filter for that purpose. Um, you mean you're using like colored things to try to brighten them up or what? And Lucy, go ahead with your question anytime. I'll catch it when you ask it. Oh no, she already asked it. I'm sorry, guys. Okay, does anybody have seen a relation of color changing when fried juveniles start to show very tiny black spots? I have.
Yes.
Mhm. Mhm.
Do you know why they do? Why that happens, Cheryl? Or is it just a?
I've had whole broods that's turned yellow. This is with erectus. By about 4 weeks of age. And at that point, you could look at them and they were covered in tiny little black spots. They did lose the spots as they matured, which I found was intriguing. But I'm trying to figure out how Lucy's getting those bright orange ones down.
I know it. She
Those are
posts
beautiful.
she posts the most amazing pictures and the macros. Lucy, everybody comes to me constantly and tries to reach you because they want to get some of those macros. So you need to like have I don't know, a link or something where you can get that going because people want them. But yeah, no, my seahorse, one of my baby seahorses, what little William it was. And I always named my babies because I didn't have that many when I first started. Anyhow, he had the little black dots. He outgrew it just like Cheryl's did. And I was actually worried when I saw it. I thought something was, you know, like something was wrong with him. Dan, you probably don't remember that. It was years ago, but I remember calling Dan and being like, "What is this? Oh my gosh, there's something wrong." But it wasn't. It was just
Well,
weird
when I
colors.
first started, and the first fry I ever raised came from a wild caught pair. And both of those were the classical brown with the silver saddle markings. And the closest they ever came to being any kind of different color was I had one entire group that had a white stripe down their back. I called them my skunk group. And they were dressed, the rest of their bodies were dark. Of course, they outgrew it.
Hmm.
But yeah, they did some strange things as they're maturing.
Right, you know, and that's what's so interesting for me too is that I had at one point I had two pair that were, you know, giving me fry constantly. I could barely keep up. But from the same seahorses, the fry would be completely different per batch. Like I had one batch, um, I'll try to post the pictures, guys, after we're done. But I had one batch that were like really not piebald looking, but they were like just white and black, and it was just this unusual pattern, and they were so cute right from birth, and well, not from birth, but once they started to get enough meat on themselves so that you could see it. But why is that? I mean, if they're, is it just like humans, kids and stuff being different, that kind of thing?
Every batch can be different, and then of course, if you're doing like I was doing at one time with the piebalds, then it really gets, screwy.
You've never told us that secret. But yeah, what's interesting to me too, guys, is that um, like you were saying, Dan, that used to be you had to answer questions to get seahorses, and it was so difficult. And then when people like you guys started sharing your information, now I go into the groups and I see so many people with fry. I mean, not saying that they're all successful, but it's pretty incredible how many people are, you know,
Well, that's always been the case. I mean, if you go back and look on the org, there was always people that had fry. The thing to watch was who had fry to get rid of,
right?
and that told you who was being successful and who wasn't.
Sure, makes sense. Well, still, I think I just think it's cool that so many people are doing it. It's
It seems like a lot more people are getting into seahorses and trying seahorses. We're moving away from they're impossible to keep.
mm-hmm.
We're moving more into, yes, it can be done. They do have some unique requirements, but that you can raise them, you can keep the fry. And I mean, it's that there's been a lot of changes over the years.
I know it. I absolutely.
It, yeah, and today, my attitude is anybody can keep seahorses, anybody can raise fry if they're willing to go through and all the detail and stuff. But it's, unfortunately, what I find all too often is people want to raise fry, but then they say, well, I don't want to do it on a commercial basis and I don't want to put that much into it. Well, you got to put something into it in order for it to work. And you just can't, a lot of people think that just because they have the fry, they just do a little bit, they'll get, something. And it's not how it works. It's a lot of work to get the little guys up.
Oh, yeah.
But having said that, anybody, and I mean anybody can do it. I've seen teenagers do it. I've seen, newbies do it. It can be done if they're willing to put what it takes into it.
Yeah, that's.
It's a lot of work
Mhm.
to
It
raise
is
fry.
a lot of detail.
Yes. And I think that's where some people fail is they forget some of the little details that, that are necessary. I had a discussion today with somebody on Seahorse Sources group on Facebook about sterilizing the brine shrimp before you feed them to the fry. And I explained, the hydrogen peroxide, etc. And it was something that person had never thought about, but it really makes a difference in your survival with your fry. And there's so many, well, it's like you used to say, it's like having a king's jigsaw puzzle. And if you miss one of the pieces or get it in the wrong spot, it doesn't work. And it's still true to this day.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And Lucy, I'm watching your conversation. Dylan, thank you so much. And we're so glad when we have people like you that do come to the channel and, feel better about being able to do something because of the help. That's the whole point of this. So we love having you, and we're so glad you feel better about, the information that you're getting. And sorry, Luce, I'm trying to keep up. I'm trying to read them all. Okay, so what's going to be different in next year? Each of you, what are you going to do differently with
I'm
seahorses?
not going to do anything different.
Turn the news off, turn social media off, and go about my life.
There you go. There you go. I'm with you. Hey, sorry for I keep jumping around, guys, but Ray, so you are now strictly abdominalis, is that correct?
Abdoms, yeah.
Okay. And so, do you think you'll ever?
Last Wednesday night.
Yeah, I know. It sucks. I
It
can't even
sucks.
think of words. Yeah, I know. Will you stick to that then, or are you just going to stick with them and ride it
Yeah.
out?
Like I'm never going to get more. Like I'll be 78 in 2 months. And in my physical condition, like it's just too much to keep on going. Like if my worst case scenario is I may have to find someone to take the abs if I can't keep on.
And how long have you been doing this, Ray? Seahorses?
2002.
Wow. I mean, that's just incredible to me. And
I started on the forums before that, on the old one that David Warland had.
mm-hmm.
I was on that forum first, and then when they had their confrontation a little bit, and the org sprouted out of that, then I joined up.
Nope,
with the
nope,
org.
the other way around. You got it backwards.
Have I?
The Signathid came about from a split from the org.
Oh.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the person that owned the org ended up selling it to Mark or giving it to Mark or whatever however that transaction worked. And there was a breakup. There was a big fight on the org, and there was a breakup. And part of the group left and went and created Signathid.org.
Well, I was a part of that. That was the first one that I joined up with.
Hmm.
And then I ended up on the org after that. Member number 701.
You even know the number. That's awesome.
You were definitely early on.
Well, and what's really cool though is that you still come like here and you're in the group and you really, you're still helping people, even if you can't physically, take care of the seahorses yourself. You're spreading the love, so to speak, which is great. I don't know where we'd be today if it weren't for people like you guys, that made a difference back then, and Dan doing all the experimenting and figuring it out, and look at us all now. Cheers to that. Holly, what are you going to expand in this next year?
Well, I actually made a schedule for myself for next year. I had to do it because I had to figure out, how I'm going to work at my job, which thankfully I can do from home most of the time, and also raise the seahorses and manage that. So I designed a complete schedule for myself for next year.
I so wish I was that prepared and that organized. That's so cool. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow, but hey, whatever. But
Holly,
It's
I'm
getting
gonna tell-
crazy.
I'm going to tell you a funny story real quick. Because once I finally got good at raising fry, it wasn't unusual for me to have a couple hundred fry all over the house. And I would go to parties, like Christmas parties and stuff with my in-laws. And I'd say, oh, I got to run home. I'll be back, at such and such a time because I have to go feed seahorses.
Yeah.
Well, one of them finally came to me a couple years later and said, I just realized you're serious. You really do raise seahorses. You're not kidding around.
Buddy.
well, that's
Huh?
I do that too.
See,
I do that too. I can only stay a few hours because I have to go feed the seahorses.
well, though, what's really cool though,
Yeah,
guys.
and people
Oh,
look
sorry.
at you like you're out of your mind.
Yeah, but I mean, it's really like you said, Cheryl. It's getting better. Like more, I can't tell you how many people like a church we joined was like, you have seahorses? I didn't know that was even possible. But it's getting to where fewer people say that to me. More people are like,
Oh,
oh, okay, cool.
Well, look at the changes in the reef hobby too. In over the last 15 years or so, it's been. I mean, they're keeping and propagating corals that even 5 years ago nobody was able to keep.
Yep.
And when I had my old reef tank, it was softy dominated because nobody was working with acros, hurricanes, and stuff like that. And it's just the whole hobby has evolved.
You're not wrong. And Lucy, I saw your comment. You're wanting to do more experiments next year. You guys, I wish she could jump in here and tell you, because if you don't follow Lucy in her posts, she does some of the coolest things. She's the one that introduced me to Graham Short, and she's just always doing cool stuff with experimenting and etc. You'll have to go look, but definitely sounds cool, Luce.
So
go
so
ahead.
what big breakthroughs did we have in the seahorse hobby in the last year?
Great question. I don't know. What do you? Can you answer it?
No, not really.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
but I'm just wondering what, perception is that has there been any real breakthroughs?
Yeah. I
I mean,
mean,
we know about the H zebra being caught,
the what?
the H zebra
Oh,
being
yeah.
Yeah.
caught.
That's right.
There's a few more hobbyist type people keeping dragons. Not many, but a few.
Mhm.
Um, I think that we've seen in the last year a lot more people get involved with seahorses, and I think part of that is due to the COVID stuff. And at the same time, I think we've also seen a dry up of availability on the market as well.
Yes, yes.
We have a big problem here in Canada. There just plain isn't availability anywhere when it comes to seahorses. Um, there's a fellow with the Seahorse Canada that's taken over the Seahorse Canada site now that is apparently getting things rolling again with Redi and Erectus.
Ooh.
But it's still pretty small scale, and he's not selling across Canada like the previous owner had. But other than that, um, you have to watch for offshore stuff coming in. When they come in, they're about 2 inches, maybe 2.5 inches in size when they come. And most of the people that are buying them don't have any uh, thoughts to check out forums or social media or anything about the care of them. They just think they can do it, and they get them and they lose them.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, there's been, it's like I know several people that are been looking for reed-eye for
Yeah.
quite some time. And we all know that reed-eye are not easy to raise. Uh, ORA and Alicia are having some luck with combs, but again, it's not like raising erectus. And it's the same with what was it, Deborah Corker that has the Wheaties.
Hmm.
Yeah, we're seeing more diversity in some of the species, but we're still struggling to raise a number of species.
Right. I know. I agree, and that I see that all the time too. People looking for Reedy or just in general, because like I said, you see all these people that are trying with Fry, but there's still just one or two places to buy seahorses, right? I mean, when
Yep.
people ask me where to get them, I always say, um, Alyssa, or check with your local reef club. And check in the group. Obviously, you can't ask questions about selling and etc. But what other way is there to find people that are selling, or is that it?
It's very limited unless they're selling wild caught as captive bred, which obviously goes on also,
Does
which
it
is very
still go on? I thought that it was so much better than that now. Yeah.
there's still companies that I keep stumbling across.
Mm.
I had one here recently, bought a large male in a store and was not taking frozen at all.
Gotcha.
And he spent months trying to save that seahorse. And it discourages people when that happens, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, Holly and I were trying to help a gentleman who's now part of the group, Seahorse Sources group. But yeah, same deal. And Dan, what did you? I remember talking to you about it. Did you say that especially in Florida, you're more likely to see like wild caught or?
Yeah, because you get a lot of people that will catch them and go to the fish store and turn them in and get $5 or $10 for them.
Yeah.
There's several divers who do that. They're not supposed to without a collector's permit. You can collect a seahorse legally, but you can't collect it and sell it without a collector's license.
Gotcha.
Um, but it happens all the time.
That's a
Mhm.
shame because you're right. That's the main thing that
It's
does
not a large
discourage
scale.
people.
Yeah,
Oh,
but it's
good,
not large scale.
good.
Most often, what happens is the collectors will often collect the seahorses from the bait people. The bait people will get seahorses as part of bycatch. So they'll throw them in buckets until they have enough, take it to the collector. The collector turns around and sells it to the wholesale to the shops.
Shame. Well, I'm just, I'm glad they're. Hey, that's something that didn't Seahorse Sources Group start this past year? It started in 2020, didn't it? The group?
No,
Oh.
no, it goes back before then.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. Never mind. Look how much I pay attention. Felicia messaged me while we were just talking and said, "Does anybody know who Bobby Miller is? He is Humble Fish, the disease guy. She wants me to try to get him on the show. Ever heard of him? I guess not. Okay. Well, I will, Felicia, try to get in touch with him because we're all about having guests on. And yes, Luke, I think they already answered your question, but we're definitely here for questions. We're just kind of chit-chatting tonight. There was no big topic, but that's any questions. We'll start talking Seahorse. But did you get his question answered? What are the differences in filtration with Macrology and a protein skimmer? Did
Yeah,
you?
I was trying to type it out, but think of it this way. Um, Macros, something has to eat the food and turn it to ammonia, which gets converted into nitrite and nitrate. And plants can take all three forms. Primarily, they prefer the nitrates. So if you if you're thinking of a macro as a filter, the macros will help filter the inorganic material, but not the organic material. The organic material is going to be eaten by bacteria and protozoans, not by macros. So something has to consume it before it's available to the macro.
Gotcha.
Macros don't absorb food into themselves.
Right. No. Yeah. Perfect point. And so, um, I mean, do you want to cover the differences in filtration, what you need in a seahorse tank, or?
Well, we had this. I
I know.
posted it earlier today in in a one of the threads on there, or post, whatever you want to call them. But in a seahorse tank, you really, unlike most tanks, you really need mechanical filtration. And I know people set up reef tanks with no mechanical filtration whatsoever, and they rely on the system to break everything down and cycle through, and that can happen. But you got to remember, when you have leftover food, the only way that it's going to get filtered out is for it to be broken down, and to break it down, something has to eat it. And unfortunately, a lot of people think that a reef tank, they feed it twice a day. They think they're heavy feeding it. Well, a pair of seahorses can eat a half to a cube of myces 3 times a day. And if you're feeding that to them, and then look at the mechanics of how they eat, where the snicking process, there's waste, typically about 8% what goes in the mouth comes out through the gills. And then they got a crappy digestive system, which about 23-24% doesn't get digested. So roughly 1/3 of the food the seahorse actually consumes ends up into the water column. So it's almost the equivalency of throwing a half to a cube of myces in a tank and letting it rot every single day.
Yeah.
And to combat that, you really need good mechanical filtration, which means particulate removal as well as a good protein skimmer, ideally an oversized protein skimmer.
So the natural seahorse tank is not your best
If you don't
bet.
do that, if you Right, but I'll say this: if you don't do that, what's going to happen is your population of bacteria and protozoans are going to expand to eat those foods, and many of the commensal organisms that we normally have in our tank that are not pathogenic can become pathogenic in high counts, and sometimes the bacteria can shift from a good bacteria to a bad bacteria. A lot of people don't realize it, but even Vibrio can act as a nitrifier. So they
Mm.
start, growing, and next thing you start having problems. And typically, what I see, at least from a help desk perspective, is typically somewhere, close to 9 to 12 months is when I start getting calls from people without mechanical filtration, where they're having or poor mechanical filtration, and they're starting to have issues with either bacteria issues or gas bubble disease, pouch emphysema, and those types of things. And 9 times out of 10, that's preventable, and it's also correctable if you get on it soon enough to turn things back around.
I'm so glad you just went through that actually, because we talk all the time about you want to avoid high organics, and you do a good job of explaining what that means. But I don't think you've ever, at least not that I remember, really nailed down how that happens. So I'm so glad you just covered that. That's awesome. Um, and I was gonna say something else, and I keep forgetting what
Oh,
I'm saying.
Kelly,
Oh,
my
wait,
friend
go ahead.
installed Zoom, so watch for her to come on.
Okay, yeah,
Her
absolutely.
name's Tara.
Yeah, I'd love for her to jump in and ask some questions. We need questions. And Lucy, I'm dying. I hope someday you can come to one Wednesday because I'm dying for you to show off that net feeding. I don't know anybody else who does it that way, but I think it's awesome and it works for you. And I'd love for you to show it. I know you got plenty of good posts about it too. But And Joseph asked, for Rectus, can I put a bottle of live copepods in the tank plus feed frozen foods?
You can, but keep in mind that copepods are really too small for seahorses to count much as food. Think of it as a little candy snack. They're too small in mass to really providing nutrition. And secondly, most larger seahorses will pretty much ignore copepods.
Mhm.
Everybody thinks copepods for seahorses, copepods for dwarf seahorses, and bigger food items for larger seahorses.
It wouldn't, I mean, but
Amphipods.
that wouldn't really hurt anything though, right? I mean, they just have copepods in
Well,
the
the
tank.
only time it hurts is, and I've had this happen where I've sold seahorses to someone and they've got their tank absolutely loaded with copepods, and because the seahorses are juveniles, not full grown, they decide to eat the copepods
Mm.
and they won't eat the frozen food. And I've actually seen seahorses starve by trying to live off the copepods,
Oh,
and there's just not enough mass for them to get enough nutrition to survive. Even though the copepods are nutritious, there's just not enough of them.
gotcha. No, I get what you're saying. I mean, I've had chat on many times, and yeah, there's lots of nutrition, like you said, but it's just there's not enough, right?
Yeah, I
Um,
have
Go
it
ahead.
in my tank, but it's for my Mandarin Dragonette.
Right, for a different purpose. Amphipods,
Mhm.
though, are different. They're better, right? More likely to be eaten. But could a seahorse, God, spit it out? Could a seahorse survive just on amphipods?
Amphipods are a lot bigger than copepods, and they do make a decent meal for a seahorse. Um, Again, I use them same way I would use live mice. It's one of those things that I periodically add to the tanks, and they have a go at it.
Mm.
But it's also watching them hunt amphipods is pretty comical.
Right, I'm sure. But I mean, that's more like, so what you're saying is it'd be better as like an enriched snack, right? Versus
Yeah,
couldn't just do that. And I see Ray, you're answering in the comments, but let's shout it out for the show. What was the question? Does anyone use Celcon? How often should you enrich frozen foods for a normal adult pair? Ray, what'd you
Well,
say?
first of all, I'm not fussy on Stelcon myself. I don't like any of the emulsion enrichments. They don't store well and they don't store for long.
Mhm.
And second of all, I'm not a believer in trying to enrich non-live food, whether it's frozen or um, with my experiment. And I even found that uh, the freeze-dried mysis, they didn't really take up much of the product either. So while it is better than trying to do frozen, it's still not sufficient. And that's why I grow out brine shrimp to the adult size, and then I enrich those. I use my own purposes. I use the Algamac
Mhm.
3050, which I think Dan put that in his
Dance feed.
Dan's feed. Um, with me, I buy it from out of California in bulk. Well, I used to. I'm not buying it anymore. I don't have enough, but uh, I still have some left. Um, so
Okay, I'm so sorry to
I'm
interrupt,
still
guys. If
running.
I Hey Ray, keep talking. If I
Yep.
don't grab the plug on, we're all gonna die because I forgot to plug my computer in. So keep talking. I'll be right back. Sorry.
Okay. So I'm still growing the brine shrimp, and then I enrich them before they go into the tank, and I usually feed at least once a week. If my supply is better and I've got a second batch coming on that's going to be ready very soon, then I'll feed them a few more times. But I try for at least once a week, just that extra little boost the Algamac can give them with the DHA.
mhm.
Yep. Okay, I'm back,
I may be
sir.
all wet in it because I haven't studied things as much as Dan has, but um, I know many decades ago when I had just my reef tanks, uh, the Celcon just ticked me off because it wouldn't, you couldn't store it for long. went rancid very fast, and especially when I found out it was supposed to be stored in a fridge anyway, and it was sitting on a peg on the store shelves around here in London.
Right. Dan, what would you add to that? Anything you want to add to that?
I'm sorry, I was doing trying to do 3 other messaging on 3 other different devices. What was the question?
No worries. No, just enrichment. I know that you guys, I promise we will get
Well,
to Artemia and enrichment in 2021. I promise. But go ahead, Dan.
I don't try to enrich frozen food at all.
That's all right.
Most of it's already pre-enriched before harvest, and most anything you try to do with frozen food is going to wash off in a water column. So I just see it as more pollution for the tank with very little benefit. I know there's some people who argue that, but I've never seen any differences in doing it. I think the better way to go is to gut load adult brine shrimp if you can get it,
Yeah.
or feed occasional live food such as amphipods or live mysids, ghost shrimp. Um, if you've got some big erectus that like hermit crabs, you can feed them those too.
Nice. Hey, Lucy. Lucy said seahorses ship very well. You can contact Dan, who's actually speaking on the stream. He's a pro breeder, right? Dan, and we're trying to get Miss Holly to get in that shipping role because she's doing really well. But it's scary to ship. The first time I shipped seahorses was to Felicia, and I didn't do very well. And they made it, thank goodness. But the bag was not like it wasn't a good situation. She had to do mouth to mouth, and and I'm just
Oh,
kidding.
wow.
But no, it wasn't that bad. But I just go ahead, Dan.
I can't even
It was
ship
funny.
to Canada.
It was very funny when I first started shipping. I got a hold of some boxes, and we put some water in a bag just like we would be shipping. We sealed it the way we would. We double bagged it. We sealed up the box, and I left a box out in the sun. Put a box in the freezer overnight, and then my drop test was our room is like 25 by 30 or something like that, and I threw the box all the way across the room, and then I went and picked it up and threw it back, and then I opened it up to see if it was okay.
Mm.
And then I got the biggest kick because when I did my test with FedEx, you had to send them a box of prototypes so they could inspect it and certify you. So when I sent it to them, I laughed because the guy said, well, we got through inspecting your box, and it almost passed. It passed the drop test of 3 feet, and I'm like, God, I hope so. But what they got me on was I didn't have newspaper in it as an absorbent.
Oh, jeez.
And they also wanted me to triple bag everything, and that's because most fish boxes have multiple bags in it, so you're supposed to put them inside of another bag. Well, I'm double bagged. I mean, what am I going to do? Triple bag? So once I passed it, I went back to the same old way I've been shipping and have been for 17 years.
Yeah.
So here in Canada, for me to have been able to ship the ones that I had, I would have had to go through that testing procedure, and I would have had to guarantee a certain monthly amount of business, and they would get paid for it whether I use that much or not.
Ooh.
And that's just not practical on
No.
the scale I was. I had a business of my own. I didn't need to get the seahorses into that size of a business. But I was fortunate. One of the stores around here, he would put the seahorses on his website. And when somebody ordered the seahorses, he's only 4-minute drive from my house, and I would drive there, having it bagged up. He would put it in the boxes, and it wouldn't go into his systems. It would go out direct, basically from my house to the customer without seeing any other system.
When I sell seahorses, I've got one fish store. It's in San Antonio that I sell to, and they have a separate tank, a 60-gallon cube that's specifically on its own filtration. That's exclusively for seahorses. And they have an employee that works there that's an old org member and used to keep hippocampus cobras also. So we got along real well. But it's one of those things where it's not, you don't want to just dump them to someplace. You want to make sure that the people that are going to be taking care of them have an idea of what they're doing. And you put too much work into it.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I agree with that, but once you really become a commercial breeder and you start having massive inventory, you have to, you
Yeah.
can't be picky, and all you can do is try to help educate as you go. And I've seen a big shift among live fish stores. There's still stores out there that are, they may as well be back 30 years ago, but there's a lot of stores that have changed over time that have called me up, had issues, and go over it with them. Some decide not to do seahorses because they can't be bothered with
Yep.
what's involved. And I've had others that turn around and set up beautiful tanks and, put it as a primary display tank in the middle of the store, and it attracts people. Um,
Hmm.
so there's both schools in there. And the hard part for the fish store is that, from their perspective, seahorses don't live long.
Mm.
And that's true with the way when people are not educating and setting them up. And unfortunately, even if they have a nice display, if they don't know how to coach people, the same problems still exist where people have failures.
I agree. That's one of the nice things about this one fish store, having somebody that's an old org member,
Mm.
is she very carefully explains to them what they need to do to maintain a seahorse tank, which I really like. And she knows what she's doing.
What's the main, like, when you're thinking about all of the things that we've covered on Wine Wednesdays, and that you guys cover in the group constantly and in the file section, what's the, like, if you had to pick one thing, what's the most important thing that you tell people when when they're keeping seahorses? What's the one thing that you really try to make sure they understand?
Got to have water.
Temperature.
I think the filtration, the new people that I'm trying to help, I let them know they really need good mechanical filtration. Like an oversized skimmer,
Hmm.
sump, filter socks. You really do, in my opinion, need that, especially if you're a beginner, I think. The
Yeah, if
better
you don't have the filtration, it's
yeah, the better you'll do.
Yep, just
and
like Dan was saying, after 8 months, 9 months, then they're calling you up because they didn't do it right in the beginning, and now all our organics are all crazy. Yep, yep. Do you?
So Kelly, my friend, says she's watching us on Facebook. She got
Oh,
or on YouTube.
oh, okay. Well, hello,
Oh, on
welcome.
Facebook. She says she got on Facebook, so
Okay,
she's
well, is she in the group or is she on my page? Because I want to make sure if she asks a question, we see it, or if you see it, Holly, just feel free to tell me. Ask away. Any questions you have, that's what we're here for sure. Um, Dan, what would you say is do you agree with filtration?
I think filtration is up there. The first thing, they have to decide what they're going to do for water. And, that's a biggie because a lot of people don't understand chlorine and chloramines in tap water. And sometimes people use well water, and sometimes the well water is not good.
Mm,
And, like down here, we used well water for a long time, and then we had a drought and the well water went bad. And, some of these, both city water and wells can change over time, so they need to be tested. Um, so, they need to decide, if they want to buy RO water, if they want to get their own RO machine, or if they want to buy seawater or collect, real seawater. Whatever it is, they need to get that figured out first. And then, of course, set up the tank. Filtration is huge, but so is keeping the right flow and not and putting the right things in with the seahorse.
yeah, it's just
Um,
all important, right?
yeah, I mean, you can't take a single thing and say this is important or that's not important. In the file
Right.
section, I have a very short list of setting up a tank, and it's really just bullet points. But you could take each of those topics and make a chapter or two out of them. But it's point by point. The size of the tank, how many with how many seahorses, and filtration, etc. It's all listed right there. But I wish I could say there's just one thing. It's not. It's a multitude of things that you need to be paying attention to.
yeah,
Absolutely. Go ahead.
I don't know how many people I've advised when setting up a seahorse tank, do not use live rock that's been in another tank because of the potential for unwanted pests. And I would say 80% of them listen to the fish store go by live rock, and the next thing they know, they've got apasia, they've got asterina stars, they've got crabs, and who knows what else that's showing up on rocks. And then then they start running into problems losing seahorses. And for me, that seems to be one of the hardest things to get past with somebody that's just started out setting up a tank.
Yep. And one thing I didn't hear mentioned, because we're focused mostly on setting up properly, which is, of course, yes, the most important thing probably. But Ray, one thing you always talk about is feeding, and proper feeding is being really important, right?
Yeah, a bit anal about the feeding, because I think that if you feed them more often, I believe that they build up a better immunity.
Ah,
And if you feed them for too long a time and they start pushing the food right through them, I don't think they're, once you get a certain amount into them, um, I don't think they can glean enough out of it, because you're at that point, you're just going to be pushing it right through the digestive tract. So it's just, I don't have anything scientific to prove it. It's just my own gut feeling, and it's something that I found I did much better with.
mhm.
One of the single most improved or improvements that I made was to go to 4 times a day feeding and less at a time. And originally, when I first started, I still had my business, and so I would feed twice in the morning before I went away, and it was only half an hour, 3/4 of an hour apart, but that was still better than feeding them more one time.
Mhm.
And then when I come home at night, then I'd have a few more hours to feed the other 2 times. Of course, once I closed up the business when the wife was dying, then I had a lot more time then, and I could spread the feeding out throughout the day.
Sure. And I mean, and just, I actually agree very much with Ray. More smaller feedings, but it's under, we know that everybody can't do that. So it's not like, if you're doing it twice a day and it's working for you, you know, maybe just what I used to do is throw them a snack, like we were talking earlier about, like amphipods or enriched artemia or whatever. So I would feed 2 to 3 times a day, and then like once a week I'd make sure they got some enriched artemia. That's how I do it. But to each their own, I guess. And I saw, let me see, who asked the question? Was it Lindsay?
Lindsay?
Yeah.
Yeah, you may answer it.
Yes, please.
All right. Lindsay's asking about appropriate way to sell seahorses. Her first question was what size,
Hmm.
or when. And it's hard to say when, because it depends upon your feeding schedule as to what size they're going to be at what time frame. For us, it was typically at about 4 months is when we like to sell them. And generally speaking, you want them somewhere between 3 to 4 inches when you sell them. 3 inches are probably really, some may or may not be sexable. At 4 inches, most of them are. Um, they used to grow roughly an inch a month for us the way we fed them. As far as selling them, if you are in the state of Florida, you do have to get an aquaculture permit in order to be able to sell them legally. Um, there is another way around it, but it's much, much more difficult and a lot more problems. It's much easier with the aquaculture permit because the Department of Aquaculture eliminates all the other departments that you would have to deal with. And it's very simple to get. You fill out an application and you send in the $100 fee, and they send you the certificate. And anything that you box up or take anywhere, you should have that certificate number on them in case Fish and Wildlife should inspect it. Now, that's true in Florida. That's not true of all the other states. That's just Florida. Um, in terms of selling them, if you have ways of advertising with reef clubs or, local people around, that's a great way to do it. But it's difficult today to sell to individuals unless you have a website, because most of your multimedia sources and Facebook and Craigslist and all these different places don't want you selling live animals because of the all these groups that go after people saying we're inhumane with everything.
Hmm.
Um, so live fish stores is one way to do it, but you got to watch the live fish stores and make sure that you get the right deal with them. At the wholesale level, you're not going to get very much money for your seahorses, unfortunately. And a lot of the stores will try to really undercut you, or they'll try to give you a store credit, and then you know the store
Right.
credit, you come in and buy something, well, they're actually getting a better dollar value for the seahorses by doing that, unless they give you discounts on all the stuff that you buy. So I would ask for cash and not accept store credit.
Yeah,
Um,
that'd be like,
but
go ahead.
but if you can develop a relationship with some local stores, sometimes you can get in a good shape with them and get a fair dollar and have an ongoing relationship where you can slowly move them. And sometimes you can get a store that will take, X amount, and when they sell them, they'll take some more so that you're slowly moving them out as you're growing them.
Absolutely.
Depends on how much success you have. If you have a lot of success, then you need to call me and I'll tell you how to go to the big boys for wholesale.
And yeah, he will help you too. And Jerry said eBay. You can you sell them on eBay? You can't sell them on eBay. Yeah, actually you can,
You
can't
used
you?
to be, I don't know. Yeah, you used to
Well,
be able to. I don't know if they still can.
used to be able to, but Neil's been going after everybody on
Yeah,
eBay that has anything to do with seahorses. Um, but I think here in the U.S. I occasionally still see them on there.
gotcha. Yep, absolutely. And so, Holly, I want to make sure because I know that your friend's watching now. What kind of questions was she asking you? I want to make sure we cover some of that.
Oh, I don't know because I can't see her when I'm watching this.
Oh,
So I
well,
don't know. She says she joined on through Facebook.
yeah. She said I'm here, and I waved. I just meant
Okay,
like what kind of questions was she asking you before, though? I mean, like,
oh, well, she's just starting out for the first time with saltwater tanks. She's
hmm
never had a tank before. So I showed her, like my sump, the equipment, and I said, join our group and start learning. It's a good place to learn. And, I'll have my next batch ready in about 3 months here. And, when you're ready, I'll have some seahorses for you. So,
yeah, nice. Well, my first piece of advice, ma'am, is head to Seahorse Sources group on Facebook, join, and then go to the file section because it really Dan did and Cheryl and everyone did a really good job of making sure that that information really does cover it. Also, obviously on Wine Wednesday, we try to have topics usually, so it's not usually this chit chatty, but and Dan sometimes does presentations. And
She's
go ahead.
posting questions now.
Okay, I see. She was looking into sumps yesterday. She wants to start at 100 gallon. Should you get two or four, ladies? As far as seahorses, I'm guessing. All right. So first question: what do you think of a 100 gallon tank or 100 gallon sump?
I'm sorry, were you asking me?
Yeah, sure.
I'm sorry, I was trying to find her questions online, but what was the question again?
Sorry, I see them and you guys don't. I apologize, but she just said she's looking into sumps and she wants to get a
Yep.
100 gallon sump.
Sump or tank?
does she mean 10
No,
gallons?
100 gallon tank. Um, you can use anything for a sump. Now they sell fancy sumps that are, made out of plexiglass with chambers and this and that and the other, and they're nice and whatnot. They're a lot of money, but I've even used Rubbermaid tubs for sumps. So anything that holds water, that holds equipment, can be used as a sump. I go cheap and I don't go very fancy. Most of my sumps are 20 longs or 30 breeders. As far as the number of seahorses, the general rule that I give people is one pair for every 25 to 30 gallons. And if you go with that stocking density, you could get up to 8 seahorses in the tank. But I think you'd be smarter to start off with probably 4, given the size of the tank.
Yep, and I always I would just add to that that I always say bigger is better with seahorses because like we were talking earlier, people have organics build up after 9 months. If you got more water, that's it at least takes longer. And if you set up right, it wouldn't happen anyways. But with a 100 gallon tank and it being your first, I don't know. I mean bigger's better, but that's a lot of water and water changes and so on. Do you guys get what I'm saying?
I don't see a problem with it. I see
Okay.
a lot of people start with bigger tanks as long as they've got the resources to set it up correctly with the right pump and the filtration and whatnot. it's actually easier long-term to manage than a smaller tank.
I mean, that's not
That's
wrong.
kind of how I feel about it too. I mean, I first started with like a 30 gallon, like nanotype. And looking back, I should have just gone, with the 60 plus from the very beginning. It was harder, a lot more work than my bigger tank is now.
The biggest problem with the larger tanks is depending on how tall you are, you may have difficulty cleaning a 100-gallon tank. The other aspect is you're going to have trouble keeping track of small or basically juvenile type seahorses in a 100-gallon tank. Because, I mean, I can lose them in a 30-gallon tank.
Yeah, but I mean, I do. I know we say 30-gallon minimum for one pair, but I definitely think you should go bigger than that, like Holly was saying. So,
Yeah.
thumbs up. And she also said, I'm understanding that a bigger tank is even easier to clean. Right, exactly. You just have, I don't. Well, you guys think it's easier to clean, or well, I mean, it depends a lot on your equipment. So let's do that real quick. So she gets
And
a.
also, I want to say, because when Tara was over here, I was showing her on my tank because she was talking about a tank that she had originally had in mind for the seahorses, but we figured out in conversation that it was too tall.
Hmm,
So I said, you need to be able to reach into it to clean. You need to be able to reach in it. So
right.
that's something to watch for when you're buying tanks, is make sure you're able to reach in all the parts of it and get to it.
Gotcha.
I'm
It's a
just not
great
big
point.
on, yeah. So I've
Very
got,
great point.
I'm,
And I've seen way too many people get talked into, oh, you need a tall tank. If it's not 6 feet tall, it won't handle the seahorses. And, they got to go turn upside down, do a handstand in the tank to get to the bottom. Um, I recommend anybody buying a tank, stick your arm in, see if you can reach the bottom. And if you can't, get a shorter tank.
yeah.
Absolutely. And oh my gosh, so I'm trying to read the comments too. Holly's hubby innovated a desk, and I am sticking or sitting with that. Good. And so, okay, so you got whatever size tank, and we've talked about definitely want a sump. It makes everything so much easier. What kind of equipment do we put in the sump, guys? I think you mentioned a little bit earlier, skimmer, right?
Skimmer, you want some way of collecting the water coming out of the tank.
Hmm.
A lot of people like to use filter socks, which I recommend, and that can be as simple as using attaching it to the pipe, and or you can build a holder that holds the bag. Um, some people will use blue bonded media or as a filter medium for the water to come in through. Um, Most people, if you have a sump, will have some type of biological media in the sump, and then a protein skimmer, obviously a pump, and then of course there's other things you can put in there as well. But those are the basics.
And Dylan said he prefers all-in-ones. I know you do. Sorry, I'm a sump girl, but do you guys like the all-in-ones for seahorses? I think we talked about this a week ago, but
I like the concept. I just haven't found the tank that I like.
gotcha. Okay, so we've got the equipment in the sump. We've got the number of seahorses. We kind of talked about feeding. What else? What else is important to say to somebody that's just starting up? Dan, you were
Water
talking
changes.
water changes. Well, let's back up just a little bit to what Dan was saying earlier about the water. Has anybody have any, like, for somebody starting a saltwater tank for the first time, is it pretty knowledgeable, or is it confusing about like how to make the salt water and that kind of stuff? Is that pretty basic? Got it?
It, it should be basic. If somebody picks up a basic book on aquariums and reads through it, some of the things like how to mix your salt water, how to test for ammonia, how to test for nitrates, what a protein skimmer is, those types of things are covered.
Hmm.
Um, Most of the time, we don't get too much into how to do this, how to do that with the salt water and what have you, unless somebody asks.
Okay.
The thing to remember is that when you're mixing salt water, is ideally do it ahead of time. Don't mix it and use it. Ideally, you want to mix it a day in advance and let it circulate before you use it, and let everything dissolve and settle out and stabilize.
Gotcha. And when you're cycling the tank, we did a Wine Wednesday. Just Google it, or on YouTube, search for cycling under the Seahorse Whisperer. And because Dan did a great presentation on it. And you can learn about the using ammonia to cycle. And then temperature. What about temperature?
Low 70s.
Low 70s. Yep. I'm just trying to throw stuff out there. Okay, great question. Okay, wait, couple questions. Sorry, guys. All right, so what about companion fish like starfish? We did do a wine Wednesday on tank mates also, but what do you guys think? What tank mates?
Micro brittle stars are seahorse safe.
Hmm.
Asterenia stars can kill seahorses.
Hmm.
And I'm always very cautious about advising people to get starfish for that reason, because some of them will eliminate seahorses.
Yep.
Mhm.
And I think Cheryl talked a little bit earlier about buying. So, okay, we say don't try not to use live rock. Instead, cycle your own using the ammonia cycle. Where do you guys advise people to buy dry rock? Is there anywhere in particular, or just anywhere?
Some places not wet.
There you
That
go.
means not in Florida. Not in
Yeah.
Florida.
You know, not not to be jumping around too
No,
much
go
here,
ahead.
but in the file section, there is a short article that I have the basics of a tank set up for successful seahorse keeping. If I can use Mr. Tongue with Mr. Lips here. And in there, here's the basic list. Tank minimum of 29 gallons with 25 to 30 gallons for each pair of seahorses. Substrate should be sand or bare bottom. Stay away from crushed coral or gravel. Water flow minimum should be roughly 10 times turnover tank volume per hour. Biological filtration should be adequate to handle the anticipated biological load. Mechanical filtration should have some type designed to remove suspended particulate matter as well as a good performing protein skimmer. Temperature should be between 69 to 77 degrees, with 72 to 74 being ideal. Tank mates stick with 0 to 1 on the following guides with seahorse.org. And then I also have Fused Jaw on there that's not there anymore. Lighting is not critical for seahorses. Recommend LEDs when possible. Parameters, your basic parameters, your ammonia nitrite should be 0. Your pH should be 8 to 8.3 and salinity between 28 to 36 parts per thousand. Seahorse species, stick to one species per tank, and feedings minimum twice a day, ideally 3 times a day. And that's my basics in that article of setting up a
Yeah.
tank.
Thank you.
And each of those can end up into being a long discussion
Hmm.
or a chapter in a book or what have you. But that's the basics of what you need to cover. And if you go by those few things and then expand upon that as you go, you should be fine setting up a tank.
Gotcha. I mean, very good. Thank you for covering that. And not to jump around on you, but I'm
Go
just
ahead.
seeing a question. Where was it? Is RO water just as good as RODI?
It depends on what you're using it
Different.
for. I've never used DI in my water because I'm doing fish only systems and I don't need it. Some of the reefers will use DI, but my RO system is set up both as a water source for the fish and a water source for us to drink.
Oh, gotcha. Cool. All right. Okie dokie.
Well,
Go ahead.
one thing too that I had that question here in the last couple of days. Somebody talking about having a well. Well, I'm on a well, and yes, my water does change. So every time I make water after I run it through my RODI unit, I always test it and then take whatever action is necessary, including sometimes chlorinating it
Oh,
and then adding a dechlorinator, depending on what my water's coming up with. So that's something that people need to think about, depending on where their water, what they're doing with their water.
yeah.
Peroxide can work too.
I kind of stick with Dylan. I like RODI water for the fish. Mainly though, it's because my water is so bad. I got a water test and it's not good water. We don't drink it, even RO. So the fish get the RODI. But anyway, so I got to turn myself back on, don't I? All right. And yeah, Jerry, or I think it was Jerry, also said he saw a YouTube video where the person was saying to use lava rock from Lowe's or Home Depot. And I saw Lucy answered it, but have you guys heard of that at all? Lava rock? Guess not. Lucy said, let me see where she said that it's a good porous rock, but she wouldn't add lava rocks as the composition is highly variable, and it can contain harmful substances. If I could speak today, excuse me. But yeah, I mean, that's something like that I always worry about too. Is what the rock or what the ornament or whatever's made of. I added an ornament from a fish store to one of my seahorse tanks. It was some dumb fake anemone or something, some flowy coral looking thing, and it ended up like getting really messed up. Like it ended up becoming this gel-like substance because I didn't even think about it, but you couldn't put it in salt water, which dumb on my part. But I just wondered, have you guys ever? Do you worry about that kind of stuff, or have you run into that, or?
I'm pretty careful. Well, one thing I do too is I always run everything I add to the tank, all my fake decorations and things. I run it through my bleach bucket or peroxide for
Ah,
if it, just in case there's anything on it, and let it air dry. And but yeah, I wonder about stuff too, because sometimes, yeah, you might see something natural like a lava rock or a thing like the person was talking about, and you wonder, is that something that can go in the fish tank or not?
mhm.
And I usually don't. If I have a question in my mind about it, I won't use it. But sometimes you see something cool and it's tempting. You're like, that would look great in the fish tank, but I
Yeah.
don't know it's safe.
Speaking of it, like the yellow chains that everybody likes to get, do you guys clean them first? Do you do anything to them, or nah?
I do. I do, but not extensively. I just rinse them off and run them through a few minutes of the bleach bucket like everything else.
Yeah, I saw Lucy did a really good.
They're fine.
Sorry, Lucy did a really good post on that the other day about how she just pulls her decorations, bleaches, primes, puts them in, all done and good and clean. Absolutely. Um, okay, yeah, water changes. That was one thing I think Cheryl mentioned and we didn't really say. I'm jumping around, guys. Sorry, but Cheryl, how do you tell people that they need to do water changes when they first start with seahorses?
First of all, if they're first starting out, I would first recommend before they do a water change to test their water parameters.
Hmm.
If they are good, no ammonia, no nitrites, you're going to have some nitrates and some potassium, that kind of stuff. You can probably get away with a 10-15% water change once a week. As the tank stays longer, depending on your filtration, you may need to do larger or smaller water changes. And again, this is where your water testing comes in. And I mean, I test everything before it goes in a tank. But it's one of those things where if you've got two seahorses in a 58-gallon tank, and you can probably let them go for a couple of weeks without a water change. So part of it depends on your stocking density. The more seahorses you have, the more water you're going to need to change, and the more frequently.
Gotcha. Very good. And Dylan said, so here's an odd question. How would you describe the smell of dry salt? I mixed my first salt water the other day and the smell was very much like a chemical lab. Huh. I don't, anybody got a comment for that one? I don't.
Was it cloudy?
Was the water cloudy? Because, yeah, go ahead, Cheryl,
Well,
why'd you ask that? Go
you've
ahead.
got particles that are kicked up into the air, and you've got some reactions in with the salts as a
Mm.
mix. Now, what some people make the mistake of doing is putting the salt in and then adding water to it. And ideally, you should have the water up to the level that you want and then add the salt to it and mix. Otherwise, you can cause some precipitation with the salts in there.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I want to address on here
Yeah.
is the conversation of drinking RO water.
Okay.
And most of us do it. But if you're drinking water that's pure, that has nothing in it, the body is going to equalize it by pulling minerals from the body to equalize that water.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't realize it, but years later, you start having problems with bones and stuff like that because it's going to pull calcium and other salts to equalize that water. So realistically, if you're drinking RO water, you should be adding some minerals back into it. And there's many products on the market for that purpose. Or, drink water that does have minerals in it
Gotcha.
instead of just RO water.
Great points. And Luke asked, how often should you change the filter sock? Dan, I see you answered him, but and yeah, obviously anytime so that it doesn't get clogged. But do you have any kind of schedule? Do you guys?
It depends upon the tank. Most of ours we had to change because of the stocking density. We had to do it on a daily basis. But most people, most hobbyists with a couple of seahorses in a tank probably only need to do it once a week or so.
Mm,
I
gotcha.
do mine once a week. Just it's part of when I do my water change. I change out the filter sock and empty the skimmer. I check the skimmer throughout the week to see, if it might need emptying after a few days. But I have a really big skimmer, so it seems to be okay for a week.
Absolutely. I did it the same way, Holly. It was all one shot, one time in one day. I did it whole day. I did all my tanks. It was awful, but anyways.
No.
How many tanks do you have right now, Holly?
Well, I just emptied one because I moved the juveniles that were left into my big tank.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, all I've got is my 64-gallon display tank, a 10-gallon tank, with some of the babies I'm raising, and then a 3-gallon with more younger babies. But we're building the new system for the juveniles, so I'll have that 100-gallon set up soon.
Absolutely.
And then I have my 34-gallon is kind of an extra for if I need it. Something in between. It's not set up now, but it can be put together if I need it. So right now, things are easier for a little while.
Gotcha. That's, you know what I wish I would have done? I wish I would have had people, maybe I'll still do it in a post, like had people show me, your favorite seahorse tank picture from the year or something. I could have done a slideshow, but anyways. Okay, what other questions am I getting here? Lucy changes her socks every 3 days. Yep. Okay, what else, guys? I did want to make this one shorter, but I want to make sure we get all the questions out. And did anybody got big plans for New Year's Eve? Anybody going anywhere?
No.
Painting cabinets.
Painting cabinets. Yep. My kids came and they said, are we gonna like do something? And I was like, we can watch the ball drop on TV if you want. I'm not going anywhere. It's COVID, but no.
Not the same without Dick Clark.
I know. You know what? Actually, last year, I don't even think I could find it. Do they still do the actual ball dropping, or is that no longer a thing?
No, they still do
Oh,
it,
okay.
but it's, I would imagine they're not going to have the big party at Times Square this year.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. I was reading the comment. Luke, you're right. Lucy changes her socks every 3 days. Is quite a funny comment. I didn't even think of it. Thank you. All right, guys. If you got any more questions, get them up there really quick because I'm winding down. You know how it goes. Anything else you guys wanted to cover? Last Wine Wednesday of the year.
Not that I
Hopefully, 2020 is going to be hindsight very soon.
Thank goodness. I 2021's got to be better. I mean, it's just got to be for sure. Man.
Candid here, I figure it's going to be this time next year before we're starting to get
Hmm.
in any decent shape.
Yeah.
Man, I mean, I know, I keep reading that things are progressing but I don't see it. My kids are still not back in school, which, I'm so over that. And, whatever. I don't know. I don't want to sit here and complain, but I'm ready to get back to life. Do you guys feel like, it feels like it's never going to be normal again. I hate that.
It'll never be the same, but it'll be a new normal.
I hate
Yeah.
that phrase, new normal. I don't like that. I want my old normal, darn it. But
You've had a new normal for 4 years.
gotcha. Okay, Lucy's coming back, man. They don't wear socks in Florida. There is no socks, so gotcha. Thanks for coming, Luke. Thank you for everybody who came. And Jerry, clean the fish tanks. I didn't get that. I didn't get the question. If you want to throw it again, but all right, guys. Well, anything else? Last call. Nope. Okay. All right. Well,
Did anybody else get their stimulus check today?
my son did, and I have not. So, But did you, Cheryl? Did
You
you?
got mine.
You did? That's
Yeah, it's
great.
already in my bank account.
Did you have
I
the
want to be
direct?
stimulated.
Dan, did you
It'll
have?
pay for Christmas.
Was it?
I'll
Did you?
have to check mine. I haven't checked my bank account today. Maybe I did. Wouldn't that be nice?
I think it was all the
I
people that had it set up for direct deposit. You know what I'm saying?
well, I have direct
I did
deposit and
that.
I didn't get it.
Oh,
Yeah, I did that for the last check, but normally I don't for the IRS because pretty much I only pay
right.
being self-employed.
Well, that was a
I wish
big,
it was, wish it was more.
right. A big concern for me was like because I'll tell you, as soon as some of the protections let up, boy, the creditors, they lynched. And I was just, people can't interrupt that, can they? The stimulus check?
You know, I was talking to a process server the other day,
Mhm.
and there's tons and tons of evictions and foreclosures that are sitting and waiting on the opportunity to move them.
Oh,
And if you
Yeah.
think about it, it's kind of a rough situation because landlords still got to pay their mortgages and they still have their overhead. Um, and it sucks all the way around for everybody, but I'm glad I don't have rental property right now and dealing with that.
oh, I know.
Just a question for you people down there.
Oh,
Uh,
good.
If a landlord is going to evict someone that isn't paying, in this situation, when there's so many people being evicted, who is he going to get to come in and actually pay to make things better for him? With so many people unable to pay
Yeah.
and all these landlords that are going to do all these evictions,
It,
he's
it
gonna
varies from
be better
state to
off.
it varies from state to state, Ray, because eviction laws vary. In South Carolina, when I had rental property there, I could have somebody out in less than 30 days. In
Yeah.
Massachusetts, by contrast, once you serve them paperwork, they don't have to pay rent and you can't do anything to them. It can take 9 months to get them out.
Oh my
In
gosh.
Florida is typically about 45 days to get somebody out. But I'll tell you, down here, with the cost of real estate going up and people moving to Florida, you can fill rental property quickly. In fact, rents down here are higher than what you would pay for a mortgage.
Wow. Crazy. Hey, Ray, one last question for you. What did they do for you guys? As far as like stimulus or helping people or any of that, did they do any of that?
Well, people like me, they don't do anything for it because I have no needs.
Right.
For me, the only needs, I would like to get back into a social life again with my kids and so on, but I can't. But as far as financial situations, there are programs around that if you are in need, that you can then take advantage of. And the government here is more prone to doing more for the people than what it appears down in the States. We still have increased usage at the food banks, but nowhere's near like what happens down there.
Well, we just have a Congress that can't get anything done.
No, we just have a government that takes.
Yeah, but that too.
Well,
Right.
we
They
have the
take
same
they take
problem.
and give to special interests.
Yeah.
So why are we sending, what is it Pakistan money for gender differentiation or whatever that thing is?
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's ridiculous on what
Uh,
they do with the money. I wish they wouldn't be able to put everything in one bill. I wish they had to pass each thing line item per bill.
I agree.
And that way you could very easily veto some of this crap. And what they do is they just bury it in there.
Yep.
When you got a 6,000 page document that they're going to sign within 2 days, who the hell reads the damn thing?
Right.
Yeah.
And it was given to them right before, and they didn't have, even if they wanted to, they couldn't have. And no, I absolutely agree. They bury that stuff. And then, if somebody like Trump, I said the bad word, wouldn't tell everybody about this stuff, would we ever even know? Like, I'm not going to go read that 6,000 page bill or whatever. But anyways, didn't mean to go all.
A senator on MSNBC today, and he was bemoaning the fact that if that $2,000 thing went through, that it would be almost $1 trillion increasing the debt. So he's sitting there for the ordinary person to give away almost $1 trillion. but he didn't say dick all when they gave away almost 2 trillion to the 1%.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I hear you. Go ahead.
But then look at all the people that supported that move.
Mhm.
I know it sucks.
What
That's why
now
there
for?
needs to be term limits. Term limits would
Thank
solve
you.
much of this.
Yep, absolutely.
There's a lot of people that are stepping up, myself included, saying we need term limits. It's reached, it's reaching a
Especially for
critical.
the leadership.
Hey,
Yeah.
I'm with Lucy. Jerry said we throw money from helicopters in the U.S. What no pork, and Lucy and I want to know where the next drop point is for sure. But all right, guys.
Yeah, when they
go
throw pork and you got a bunch of pigs land on you, then you're in trouble.
ahead. Right.
Oh,
All right, we got a little off track on the. We got a little off track.
welcome to 2020.
Exactly. Well, I just want to say I hope everybody has has made it through the year. We've all survived. It will get better. It has to. I hope you guys have a fantastic and safe New Year's Eve. And was there any ideas for topic next week? Or I'll be sure to get it up a lot sooner for next week. But anybody?
We should try to figure something out now so we can post
So
it.
let's
and-
do it. Figure it out. Sorry.
Ray, what do you vote for next week for a topic?
I would have no idea at all. Because I'm into winding down mode, things like that don't come up to me now.
Well, think about what you see on the different message boards that are common topics that people are discussing. Make good topics to put up.
Oh boy. With
I'm not meaning to put you on the spot. I was just,
Yeah.
give you a chance to put input.
Yeah,
Um,
I think I have to pass.
Okay.
I wouldn't come up with something in the next 10 minutes probably.
Cheryl? Cheryl, what do you think?
Well,
It's hard. I
I'm
know,
thinking-
you guys. Go ahead.
well, yeah, I mean, I'm thinking of things like, we've already done basic tank setup plumbing, but things like, what are acceptable tank mates for tanks starting out would be one. We're all asleep right now,
I know, and we've got.
You're our lead.
but we could do something along those lines. I'm also thinking, it seems like there's a lot of people, all of a sudden, possibly due to the COVID and the people being homebound, there's a lot of people getting into it. Maybe do a discussion in terms of wild caught versus take raised,
Mm.
something like, and in other words, get the word out more because I'm seeing an awful lot of people that have gotten burned lately on this.
Really, that's such a shame because I thought we were really getting away from that. Jerry said Artemia. Dan, everybody wants that Artemia, but we're trying to give Dan time because he wants to put together a really good presentation for you guys, and it'll be worth the wait, I promise. But we got to wait on him for that one. The Seahorse Corner said,
Ask Jared if his dwarf system will handle standard fry.
what was it? What'd you say, Ray?
His automated dwarf system, we should ask him if it'll handle seahorse fry from standards, like with Reed Eye or Erectus.
Well, I think you just asked him. So, Jerry, let us know. And the Seahorse Corner said raising fry for next week. Artemia. They all want Artemia. Dylan and Lucy said flow or filter turnover or food next. So, Dan, you want to make the call on any of those? Or
I was thinking maybe freshwater dips and formalin, something entirely different.
what do you guys think?
That would work.
Here, how about how to detect diseases and how to tell if a seahorse is healthy or not, different symptoms of the different things and that sort of thing?
That is a good topic because, we get a lot of people that think, marking is an illness or, that is most of the posts, that something's wrong. So you want to go freshwater dips in formalin or?
Yeah, I mean, if we think about it, if you cover it correctly, you're going to, first come up what are the indications and
Yep.
when to do it and, the complications that can happen and,
Tube feeding.
there's a lot more to it than just, drop them in a bucket for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever people think that it's supposed to be. But
Well, first you want to know that you've got a problem before you start throwing them in fresh water.
Right, but I like how Dan uses it as a, you know,
Yeah,
almost an indicator
like
sometimes
that.
too. But we'll wait and talk about it next week. So that we've made this the call, and anybody in the comments that you're, you know, putting out suggestions for topics, we will get to them. I promise. Artemia is on the list for sure. I can't wait for that day. But okay, so we're gonna go with freshwater dip, and you know, everything we just said. I'll come up with some sort of title. And but we will get to everything. And don't forget, guys, that you can often find, like, we don't mind recovering topics, like when there's always new people that need to hear the new things again. So we definitely don't mind covering the old topics again, but there you can always go back through the old ones too. I know we talk forever and some of them are long, but I try sometimes to put the timed markings, but when I can't, well, it's worth it. Just go watch them. But okay, so that's the deal. That's the topic. And you guys say goodbye. Happy New Year.
Happy New
Goodbye,
Year.
Happy New Year.
Thank you,
Happy
everyone.
New Year.
Thank you, everybody who came.
Merry Christmas.
Holly's doing the cheers with me. All right. See you guys next week. Happy New Year. Be safe. Cheers.